Woohoo! And we're live once again on another Tuesday, and I have a special guest in the house today, Mary Wu, who is known as the LinkedIn Whisperer. I have to get real close to my microphone. Shh, don't tell anybody. And so we're here today. We have a really interesting topic. But before I get stuck in, Mary, go ahead and introduce yourself so people know who you are and what you do, and then we'll get chatting.
I am Mary Wu, and somebody else put me with the term LinkedIn Whisper, which I loved. It indicates that I kind of keep an ear out and know what's going on in one place, and I will let other people know all the freaking changes and all of the things. I am in Nashville, Tennessee, because
Awesome.
it's a wonderful place for music.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. I love that. That's kind of near like Elvis Land,
Oh,
Graceland?
yes,
And
my bestie's
woo.
coming to town in 2 weeks, and we're going to go to Graceland.
Oh, cool, 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 cool. Okay, so we're not talking about Elvis today. I don't know. That's becoming a common theme in my shows here. I don't know why that is. Okay, but we are talking about LinkedIn for students, which is a really awesome topic that we haven't covered on my show before. And I love it because I started thinking about like LinkedIn really is for all ages. It used to kind of be a particular demographic, and it's just getting wider and wider and wider. And in preparation for this live, I actually went and said, what age do you have to be on LinkedIn? Because I'd never really thought about that before. And it's actually 16. And so if we think about it, that is an amazing thing, because if you think about where you are at 16, you're like, get your driver's license. Thinking about getting on LinkedIn is probably the last thing in the world, but it's never too early to start with LinkedIn. Correct, Mary?
It is too early before your 16th birthday. I don't want
True.
LinkedIn to come yelling at me for telling 15-year-olds to be on it. But the second you're 16, you can start building that database,
Awesome.
that
Awesome.
contact list that follows you for your life.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that. And we were talking earlier about how with job hunting, a lot of times people think, oh, okay, well, we should tell our young people to get on LinkedIn because then that way they can help them find a job. But it's really not necessarily coming on LinkedIn and using it as the great resume machine. This is where I'm going to slap up my resume. This is where I'm going to apply for jobs. It's more about building the networking skills, and then building the quote to totally age us, Rolodex. And a Rolodex is something that we used to use. It was like this big round thing with cards, and it flips, and it had everybody's name. And, think of it as an address book on steroids that would just go round and round and round. And we were laughing and saying that, like, you talk to a 16-year-old about a Rolodex, they don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah, in my old slides, I used to have a Rolodex. And then one day I had taught teens in small groups in a physical presence. One time I was asked to do a presentation for a high school group in Illinois. And there were 80 people in the room, and I had slides, and I'm like, Rolodex, not going to cut it with this podcast. They have no idea what a Rolodex is. And then I'm looking at my phone and I'm going, oh yeah, contact list, that might work. And if you think, we know that we have contacts on our contact list from forever, and some that are useless, but some that are very useful. And then when you take that contact list concept, but put it up on LinkedIn with the connections concept, it's where the magic begins.
I agree. And I think the power of LinkedIn is that when you connect with somebody, you don't just necessarily connect with them, you connect with their entire network. So you're connecting with their Rolodex, if you think about everybody's contact list being on their phone, it's like every time you connect with somebody, you're in another pool of people who could help you could help, whatever. There's so many different opportunities, internships, getting to know people, hearing that, oh, we're looking for somebody to do this, or maybe you just get stimulated to start in an industry or to do a job that you never even thought of before. I didn't even know that job existed. And you could get really excited and go down a career path. Maybe you find out, oh, I'm a writer. What are jobs for writers? And you go through all the different things and you get to know those people and find out, do you like that job? And all those different kind of things. Shadowing was a big thing that was like big in my day, where people would younger people would go and actually go into an office and work with somebody and see what they do. And you can kind of do that on LinkedIn by, looking over somebody's shoulder and seeing what they do. So what are some of the things that when you are out and you're doing presentations with students, whether they're high school students or college students, what are some of the things, Mary, that you're talking to them about as a benefit of why they should be on LinkedIn?
They have the same benefits that we do. They're that expanded context. And you were talking about people being on that might be writers. You can build your portfolio right there on LinkedIn. You can write newsletters, you can write blogs, you can put them up on LinkedIn. And then if you're looking for something, you can show people your stuff. If somebody's looking for somebody that speaks with your voice, they'll see your writing there. Another young man that I had worked with when he was in high school started showing videos of the games that he was creating. He loved gaming. He wanted to work for a gaming company. And slowly through LinkedIn and I think some Twitter, he built the connections. And when he graduated college, he got his dream job.
Wow. Wow. What an awesome testimonial. That's great. That's great. And I remember the movement, it was, I think, about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And it was the "This Little Girl Is Me" movement, where a lot of people, a lot of women were making videos for young girls, kind of encouraging them. And I did that for video. And I was telling them, you can start with video today. You don't need a job. You can pick up your phone, you can start making videos, and people will begin to see your talent. So I love that you talked about that. I love that you talked about that. So when you are out and you're talking with students, how do you tell them to start? What's sort of the first steps that you would recommend students do? If, because they come to LinkedIn and it's probably deer in the headlights. There's a lot here, and it's different than being on, maybe Instagram and Facebook. That is more social. So what are sort of the first steps that you recommend for students when they get on?
Well, one of the things they can't do is talk about what they've done. If you're 16-year-old, you really haven't done a lot. But one of the things they can do is talk about volunteer work in the community. They make sure they connect to the people, the adults that they're working with in volunteer positions. They can talk about what they want to be when they grow up. So you're writing your bio, you're writing your headline, thinking forward. Who do I want to be when I grow up?
That's
great. Those thought processes. And then a lot of it is just the same as we do with adults coming in. You build your profile. You make sure it looks professional. But for a 16-year-old or an 18-year-old, they can put a different kind of a look in. They don't have to have, none of us actually anymore have to have the suit, the tie, and the plain background. We both have books behind us. It's not a plain background anymore.
That's true. That's true. I like that. I like that. What about building up that list of contacts? Because I know that, like, even with not necessarily even students, but with pretty much everybody, a lot of folks come on LinkedIn and they're like, okay, I don't know what to do because I built my profile. It looks good. So, like, the store's ready, so to speak. And they don't necessarily even have something to sell, and with students, they're not, most of them are not doing a hustle. They're just kind of having a LinkedIn presence. But then what do you recommend with, how do they start building the contacts? Because it's like, they're probably like, well, I don't want to network with my mother. So what do they do?
But you do want to network with your mother. So my son is in San Francisco area, and I know he's in IT. From my own life, way before he was born, I know a number of people in the San Francisco area. They're in IT. Yes, you want to network with your mother. You want to network with your entire family. It's a good way to get started. You also want to, as you're in high school, and maybe depending on how the schools are, you might want to wait for this until after graduation, but connect with your teachers, connect with your counselors. When you get to college, you want to connect with the professors, but also the students and also the TAs in your class. We don't know where they will be now in 5 years from now. We don't know where they're going to be, but they might be where we want to know where they are,
I
because that
like that.
TA from your freshman um, writing class might be at the New York Times, and you might want to get in there. And then you're like, oh, I could talk to them. We know that it's never been what you know; it's been who you know,
Exactly.
and it's been
Exactly.
who they know. And LinkedIn just expands that and makes that so much louder and so much more accessible.
I love that. I love that. And I know that a lot of times too, I'll recommend to people, and I think this would be appropriate for students as well, is follow your passions and follow your interests. That a lot of times it's like if you listen to podcasts, you could follow the podcast hosts, you could follow the guests, and then you can start to see the conversations. And that's another part of me. I don't think that they necessarily have to feel the pressure of creating content right from day one. Just get in here and test the waters. You can be that fly on the wall on LinkedIn where you're just starting to find people that you find interesting. You want to follow what the conversations are. You're learning about opportunities. You're learning about things that just interest you, whether it's books, like you said, the gaming, follow other gamers, follow the companies. That's another thing is, so what do you recommend with companies? Because that's probably a whole thing unto itself.
Where do you want to be when you grow up? Start following
Mm.
the companies. Okay, let's call Michelle Raymond in here. Company pages will list all of their employees. You can start following the employees at the company. You can follow the company pages. And even if you're that shy person that kind of wants to sit in the background and not post your own stuff, you can put in comments on things, actual thoughtful comments, and might start getting that attention from people that you want to get attention from.
I like that. I like that. That's brilliant. That's brilliant. Okay, so let's go to. I see that we have some comments. Let's go take some of our comments. So Jeff Young says, "Greetings, Gillian and Mary. I've had fun teaching LinkedIn to high school students. Interested in hearing Mary's student stories. Do you have a particular story you want to share? That's a good
Um,
one."
my favorite is the one with the gaming student. That I don't even think he was planning on going into gaming when he was in high school and started with me. But as he got into college and decided that was what he wanted to do with his life, he started following people both LinkedIn and Twitter.
Oh
Because
wow!
where's the audience that you want to be in front of? You have
Right.
to figure out where that is.
Right, right. And it's funny, for the life of me, I've forgotten his name. If his name comes back, I will put it in the comments later. But I know there's a guy who does he's a young guy. He does stop action photography, and he does these crazy things like he's like he stands and he falls over and he becomes a banana and he does all these things. And he was doing these videos forever, and they were just, to me, they were just fascinating because I always watch a video and go, how did they do that? But then he got picked up by Lego and he's now working with Lego. So this is an example of a success story of somebody who just started showing their particular passion, which was making this stop action photography videos. And then it turned into a dream career of, like, I know my kids when they were little, if they could have grown up and worked at Lego, that would have been the dream job. So that's really great. I love that. Tina says, "Good evening from Brussels. Always so lovely when we have our friends from across the pond joining us. Woohoo! Rolodex. I've used
Yes,
one of
I don't know
those.
how old you are.
And that's probably another thing that's really important, Mary, is like you talked, that we have to really learn our language that, talking about Rolodex, what were some of the other phrases that you found were like sort of eh, put you at a particular age that you realize, oh, I have a little bit of gap here with my young people?
I back in the day, I would ride on a train and read the newspaper, and the newspaper sold based on what was above the fold on the front page. And on LinkedIn, your profile, that's what's above the fold on the front page. Your profile photo, your headline, your about information, that's what people first see and will decide whether they look further. But I cannot tell a 16-year-old that what's above the fold on the front page is what you need to work on, because they don't know what above the fold on the front page means.
So you have to learn this. I love this. Sarah Burgess, who is another person who loves talking with students about LinkedIn. Afternoon from near London. LinkedIn most definitely is the place where students should be. And I love this. And with students, it's not necessarily, okay, now I've graduated. It can be before that. And are you finding that people are they talking about LinkedIn in schools? Like if you go into the high schools, you go into the colleges, are they teaching courses on how to use LinkedIn or anything like this?
I'm not seeing it anywhere. You can call me if you want me to come into your school and talk. If you're in Sydney and want to pay for the travel, I'll go down there. But there are other
Right.
people that could talk about it. They aren't talking about it in the schools, and schools are kind of hammed in on what they can teach because of the tests and such. But also, mom and dad might be telling them, you should get on LinkedIn. They don't listen to mom and dad.
No.
They have to listen to other people that they consider experts, people that they admire, people that consider knowledgeable. Even if mom and dad are just as knowledgeable, sometimes mom and dad don't cut it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. Yep. You don't have to convince me. And it's the most frustrating thing for parents sometimes is that you just go, I know this. I want to tell my kids this, and they're so resistant because it's coming from me. And so probably, if anything, as an action item for anybody, it's like, go and see about how you can get workshops in your schools and your community colleges or at your local libraries or something like that, that there's a way that at least then you can take your kid to it, and you could actually be doing some good, because it's difficult sometimes. Just telling your kid is not enough. It's not enough. And also too, I remember once somebody I know, and again, escapes me who it is, but I remember that they were helping their son or daughter set up a LinkedIn account, and they had some issues doing it from their computer because LinkedIn doesn't like to have sort of multiple accounts from one computer. So that can get very tricky too. So so sometimes that's why it's good to kind of reach out and get some professional help, because sometimes you can create all sorts of stuff doing it yourself, and your kids are not necessarily going to get all those skills if they do it just with you. So have you found that, Mary, that you get stuff like that?
Um, pro tip: you can get another account if you're using Chrome. You can use an incognito window.
Ah.
That's one workaround, because I know in some families they don't have computers for everybody. They just don't. And LinkedIn kind of needs to hear that if it's showing as two different accounts from the same computer, that could be. I also know they get ticked if the same account is showing up on multiple computers and they're in different countries. And that's okay to get upset with that.
Interesting. So Jeff says most of the people connected to your new connections are new to you. Okay.
True.
Yeah. Yep. That's true. Connect with the people you know, so later you can connect with the people you need to know. That's absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Annette says, how to pop by and say hi. How to say hi. Awesome. Awesome. So, Mary, so once somebody, so before you said the first step is to do your profile and to talk about, so you recommend, basically what, going through doing your, what should they put in their tagline at the top? Because that's so important. That's so important.
I wouldn't brag, put something that's untrue in there, but a lot of this is thinking forward.
Mm,
Student dreaming of becoming an opera dancer. It would be very specific to whoever the student is, but you also have to remember that you're talking to people that you don't know. What are
mm,
they saying about you? And we all struggle with headlines, and we don't ever want to say use this. I do not want. There was one time I was in a room with 80 high school students. I would not have wanted all 80 of those high school students to go out and use the same headline.
mm. No, that makes sense. That makes sense. So probably just, I like that idea of the forward facing, future facing, that it's like talk about, and I think would you recommend that it's okay to say I'm a college student, I'm a high school student, like to be totally honest and transparent about you are a young person and you are looking to learn a particular trade or looking a profession?
I would say it's okay to say that you're a high school student or a college student if you remember to change that when it changes.
Mm.
So you cannot say I am a college student and have had a job for 10 years. Okay, so
Right.
you never update your LinkedIn, huh? What's going on here?
So what do you recommend for profile photos in terms of like a college student or a high school student?
Well, the typical make it recognizable, show your face, but you can be a little bit more creative with the backgrounds, creative with what's going on. I know somebody who had their trumpet with them because that's something they love.
Mm, mm,
Then sometimes you get people in an official with a plain background. Sometimes you can get people in their natural settings.
mm.
One of my friends, her son works at a um, hotel area on a very nice island and does their gardening. He would not do well with a suit on with a plain background. He needs to be, sitting there, maybe not digging in the dirt at that moment, but looking like somebody who could be caring for these plants.
I like that. I like that. And then what do you suggest for the banner image? The banner image for a high school or a college student?
You can leave it plain, or you can have it specific to you. One of the things that we think about when we're talking about banners is what colors do you want? Make it visually appealing, but pairing with you. So the one person that had a trumpet in the profile photo was playing the trumpet in the banner photo.
Oh, I like that. I like that. And that's always also too, a no-brainer that it's like if you kind of don't have the talent to do a fancy dancy banner, just go to something like Pixabay and you can search for images because you never want to just go and Google stuff, but because you're up against copyright issues. But if you do something like Pixabay or Unsplash, you can go. And so, for instance, if you're interested in writing, maybe you do a search and you find images that go with that, books and paper and whatever. And same with if you're into music, maybe you have pictures of like your dream job, of like being up in front of an orchestra or something like that. So anything that sort of ties with who you are and what you're doing and where you want to go. It's kind of probably, going back to Michelle J. Raymond and Michelle B. Griffin, it's like it's never too early to define your brand as well. So that's part of being a younger person too, is figuring out that whole brand statement and how that affects you on LinkedIn.
And that can change as you grow, but you also have to remember to change it as it changes. And you can't flip it every 6 months, but after a few years, you suddenly find out this is the direction I want to head in. This is the brand I want to personify. And then you can shift things around. Your LinkedIn profile is not a static item.
Mm, mm. That's good. That's good. And then you mentioned putting on some of your volunteer experiences. Would you recommend things like I worked at McDonald's? Like, do you do your basic sort of part-time jobs, or do you just sort of anything goes? I worked at the library or whatever.
If you're going into writing, having worked at the library might be a really good thing. If you manage through like all of your high school and college years, even if it's working at Target, but you've had the same job for 6 or 8 years, and you show that you're stable, you're hireable, you're stable, you're not going to get yourself fired. That could be, now that might change after you get out into the world and have more professional jobs because it's not a static item. You can remove jobs if you need to or if you want to.
That's good. That's good. Is there any mistakes that you see that college students, high school students are doing on LinkedIn that you'd say don't do this? Any
One
sort of warning?
they should be doing is they should be using seeking if they're going to be looking for jobs. Seeking is a really powerful word there. And one thing they should
Seeking.
not
Okay.
be doing is we've seen people do it and we know people have gotten in trouble. It's very popular to pop your emoji in your name. But there's people that have never actually sat down and read the terms that LinkedIn has. And they go against it and then they get in trouble. And it's like, why? It's in the terms. It's really right there.
Yeah.
So don't go against the terms. Don't do things that other people are doing because you think it looks cool.
That's good.
I would also say for anybody, I would say not to worry too much about the number of connections. So don't go connecting with the wrong people just to build the number of connections.
So how do you define the wrong people? How do you tell that to people? What's wrong?
If somebody's reaching out to you and you don't know them and you don't feel like you have any reason to know them, we know who they are. They show up in our direct messages wanting us to buy Bitcoin or whatever it is they want us to do this week. And you don't have to reach out to everybody that wants to connect with you. But you can also look at someone, and if they're a second connection with a number of people you know, it might be worth connecting with them.
Okay, I can see that. Yeah, that's good. That's good. And let me just see. Oh, we do have some more questions. We had Annette pop by. Hey, had to pop by and say hi. Oh my goodness, I can't read this. Let's see if he puts it. Okay, looks like it's French. Okay, he's so good. He's gone through several different languages to reach out to us. Hello, yay. That's great. Thank you. LinkedIn should be part of a student's overall education around online presence and awareness of what future employers will be searching for, good and bad. That's kind of sums it up, Dawn. That is amazing. And that is so true. And probably one of the things that's really important to keep in mind is that your comments, and this is the one thing that I would tell every student, is that it's not just about the content you post, the comments you make. That's part of your digital footprint. And I remember when I was working with students doing online classes years ago, I talked a lot about like your digital footprint, and that when it comes time that you're going to be looking for jobs, and people will be searching to see what you've said online, what you do online. So you just want to make sure that, be very, very careful how you comment on stuff. And how would somebody going back looking at that say, oh, what is that guy about? Or gal.
Say it in front of your grandma. Don't put it on the internet.
Yes, that's absolutely true. There, it goes back to that newspaper. My mom always used to say, if it was on the front page of the New York Times, would you be okay with that? So again, we're always back in the newspaper age. It's always great. Oh, we got John Asperian here. Hi, both. You started earlier than I was expecting. Yeah, because the time changed this year. The next
Down
2
the
weeks, the time chase.
catch the replay.
There we go. There we go. There we go. And Jeff says, I have seen one local vocational school that is actually teaching LinkedIn as a part of the curriculum. Very unusual. Very unusual. And it shouldn't be unusual. That really should just become a thing that we are doing, because this will build you up for success in the long term. And again, if you could start building those skills today, plus you're increasing your contacts, you're increasing your networking, you're getting to know how to have conversations with people, at least in digital form. You don't necessarily have to go and Zoom out with people, and it could affect your career choices. So there's just so many great reasons. So we have come to the end of our 30 minutes, Mary. So can you kind of sum it up and leave us with some great words of wisdom and takeaways for everybody today?
It is never, once you're past 16, it is not too early to start. LinkedIn stays with you. I have connections that I've known from, oh my gosh, I've been on here 15-ish years. I've been on here a long time and have connections from those days. And those connections stay with you forever. And you may be able to be a benefit to people later, and they may be able to be a benefit to you later, but not if you can't find them.
Mm.
And everybody who's watching this, go to your high school, go to your college and say, are you teaching these kids about LinkedIn? And how do you plan to do that? Because it will make a difference for them.
I love that. I love that. That's great. Well, thank you for being here today, Mary. This has been a really interesting conversation, and I love your challenge. So I want everybody to do that. Really think about going and talking with anybody you know and saying, how do we get this information into the schools? Because let's not wait till these kids graduate. They got to get on LinkedIn now. So it's great. Okay. Thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week. Okay. Bye-bye.